Hello and welcome to the Business Channel. In today's programme we're looking at the apparent revival in UK manufacturing and the effect on the economy. For a generation we perhaps thought that Britain's days as a manufacturing power were over. The future lay in finance, design and in knowledge. And manufacturing on any scale was best subcontracted to cheaper countries such as Eastern Europe or Asia. Well, in the last few years, that hasn't looked so true. We have benefited from a weaker pound, but there are opportunities opening up for companies who can find a niche, those who can meet the demands of the new economic powers, and for those who have low-carbon solutions. By turning an idea into commercial reality and manufacturing it yourself, you retain more value. It puts you in a stronger position to read where the market is going, capitalise on innovation and charge a premium for quality. Britain might have lost most of its high-volume, low-cost capacity, but it's kept its skills in advanced manufacturing. After years of trouble raising finance and attracting skills, the surviving companies are thriving to varying degrees in conditions that are finally turning in their favour.
The UK has gone through a transition over the last 10 or 15 years. All our high-volume manufacturing has left the country. First of all, it went out to the emerging European countries, Poland, the Czechoslovakian countries. And then, as we all know, into India and China, Brazil. So the bit that was left really was the difficult bits, the hard bits to manufacturing. And Britain has always, or the United Kingdom, has always maintained a very good high level of engineering excellence.
For a long time, UK manufacturing has been seen as kind of the poor cousin for services industries and so on, but suddenly we're being cited as helping drive the UK out of the recession and all those kind of things, which is great. We don't have some of the benefits of other geographies around the world in terms of low cost base and so on. So what we need to do is to do things better than them, whether it be faster, higher quality, better use of technology.
Automation can neutralise much of the labour cost benefits that the Chinese and the Indians have. If we're both innovative over our product design and also about the way we manufacture products in advanced automated plants, then we can compete on the global stage.
Unfortunately, by comparison to Germany, France, Italy and Spain, we have the lowest uptakes of this kind of technology. And the reason behind that, we believe, is because that people often don't see the benefits of investing in this type of technology, or they're frightened by their initial costs or the perception of these costs.
There's still a lot of nervousness within UK manufacturers about investing for the long term. We take a very short-term view in our manufacturing industry. They want return on investments in 12 or 18 months, which in many cases are absolutely achievable. People have a perception that robot automation is expensive. That's absolutely not the case. You could be leasing or buying robots and running them for less than the minimum wage today.
Manufacturing is on the up because of a combination of both the competitive pound and I think the ability of manufacturing leaders to take advantage of the recovery. The competitive pound has undoubtedly helped since the latter part of 2008. But British manufacturing leaders have demonstrated the resilience. They've kept labour force and skills during that recession, and through the process of innovation, they've demonstrated that they can take advantage of these recovering and emerging export markets.
I think that manufacturing has been a quietly hidden secret for many, many years and has been actually gaining a huge amount of credibility and making a lot of progress before the pound started to weaken. And if you look at the strength of some of the businesses that you see, maybe not necessarily in traditional manufacturing, but in some of the innovations that you see around the products that are designed and are built in this country. I was in Belfast earlier today. Again, Belfast is making a huge transition from a heavy engineering economy, very dependent on shipbuilding, into a much more innovative, science-led manufacturing environment. And I think if you were to go to the northeast, you'll see that much the same in terms of focus on renewables and the development of the turbine industry there. And if you go to the Midlands, you still see some of the traditional industries merge with some of the newer ones. So I think it's been a quiet success for a period of time, but it's just a neglected one.
For the last 15 or 20 years, we've been talking ourselves out of manufacturing. It's only in the last couple of years where we've woken up to the fact that we need manufacturing for a strong future. And in fact, that's driven a much lesser uptake of science and technology apprentices, technicians, graduates, which is self-fulfilling. In a recent study conducted, we found that there's very poor awareness of what automation can and has been used in manufacturing, and indeed the overwhelming benefits which it can provide companies. You know, indeed, we also see there's a real reluctance to take a risk on the technology because there's not skills to look after it, and secondly on finance. In this country, we seem to be hell-bent on very short-term paybacks. We need to look at those companies that have been successful, because there are successful ones out there, build on those and build on the skill base with the youngsters coming through the system.
Really important that we have very experienced staff. When our customers are paying for consultants to be on site, they don't only expect them to know the product inside out, but they also want them to know what other people are doing in the industry and how they're doing it. So they're looking for experience of people having done it before. Especially in UK manufacturing, that tends to be signs of grey hair very often, you know. Also, if somebody phones the support desk, they want to talk to somebody that can solve their problem. They don't want to speak to somebody that just says, I'll write it down and I'll get back to you. So again, in those sort of terms, retaining staff with vast amounts of knowledge is absolutely critical. The flip side of that, we're obviously in a technology business, and it's important we're at the leading edge of technology. So it's really critical that we keep up to date with technology, that we keep up to date with training of our technical consultants and so on.
I think we need to assist in the education of young engineers. I think we have an extremely good engineering foundation through our colleges and universities, but maybe a little bit misfocused. I think we don't train manufacturing engineers as well as we need to help for the future. I think, you know, we've been trying to assist a number of universities and FE colleges to have the same technology in the education environment as they do in the manufacturing environment around them. I've been working with a number of FE colleges to try and cascade down through so that we're training people on modern apprenticeship schemes, how to actually use and apply this level of technology.
We've got to have the talent coming through, and we need people knocking at our door looking for jobs. We want people who are committed to it and believe in it passionately. Manufacturing is strong because it's had to be. We want to move away from this square mile mentality and start understanding that, you know, in the old type of economics, you know, to make any money you had to add value, you had to do something, you had to go and buy your raw materials and then turn it into pots and pans and sell it to somebody and make a bit more money. Well, that's where we are at the moment. The government needs to have a firm plan for manufacturing.
I think that government has a very important role in encouraging manufacturing by being a good and effective partner. That doesn't mean trying to run the businesses, it means creating the right long-term environment. So a simpler tax system that reduces the corporation tax rate, so money can be reinvested back into industry and into capital. Making sure that in skills terms we're actually improving and increasing the number of apprenticeships so that industry gets the skilled workforce it needs. It means investing in infrastructure so that actually the UK is an efficient place in which to do business. That's why we're retaining the spending levels for infrastructure that we've inherited from the last government, and it's why we're investing in high-speed rail to make sure that we get that improvement in public transport. So I think the crucial point from government's role is to be an effective partner, always wanting to look at how we can improve the conditions of manufacturing here in the UK, because I'm always mindful that we are competing with countries abroad. So we've always got to make sure the UK is a good place in which to do business.
The role of engineers is, I believe, absolutely critical. I think it's probably not much of an exaggeration to say that almost every solution that we face is being addressed and can be found by engineers whether it's, I think as you're aware, climate change, whether it's the ageing population. Engineers are at the back of that, mobility products for our ageing population, much of the waste reduction, carbon reduction that we're required to meet in terms of our environmental regulation and legislation. All of that has been driven by engineers through research and development, and of course from that applied product development. And I'm pleased to say that we are very much to the fore here in the UK.
To compete as a manufacturer, you constantly have to make yourself faster, lighter, more fuel efficient, safer, less wasteful and more productive. It's just as much about how you manufacture as about what you manufacture. Even in the smaller companies, engineering practices are being reassessed and transformed.
Well, I think over the last 5 years we've seen the food industry embracing robotics in particular. And I think that'll continue over the next period, and it'll be driven down more and more into the SME companies. Sectors such as aerospace, which you perceive to be very high tech, have not made big use of automation, but I think that's set to change over the next period. And we'll see more in general manufacturing and in logistics. And beyond that, and beyond industry, I think we'll see more and more service robots start to take a hold in the UK. And I'd like the UK engineers to be a leading light in that.
The thing with robots, everybody sees them as industrial automation that follows and manufactures cars. However, over the last 15 years, that has varied tremendously. And such things as baking bread, making industrial gates, picking up slabs, all sorts of weird and wonderful applications. Anywhere really where there's repetitive action and high volume, that's where robots can make a difference to companies in the UK.
The benefits are many. We published a document a short while ago, 10 good reasons to invest in robot automation. Primary reasons that in this short time we have increased productivity, reduced waste and rejects, improved worker safety. Within the booklet that we published, we included many case studies giving real-life examples of where companies have benefited in all of these categories from investing in robot automation.
So when I look at our customer base, for example, we're working with Marshall Aerospace to develop or to enhance the ITAR capabilities, which is a regulation around what materials can and can't be used on various projects. Working with our contract electronics manufacturers like Hansetech in order to put in close ties with electronic CAD systems and all of those types of things. What that means is that for our new customers, there's probably an 80 to 90% fit out of the box for their industry solutions. They can literally take it pre-configured and work with it. Why only 80 or 90%? Because it's the other 10% that really makes our manufacturers unique and gives them their USPs. So we need to make sure they've got the capability to do that.
Every sector of engineering, I guess, is affected in some way by the green agenda and the reduction in the utilisation of fossil fuels. And aerospace, of course, is a great example. We all want our planes to be more user-friendly. We want them to be less gas guzzling. And the manufacturers themselves are working very hard to reduce weight in aeroplanes, for instance, to make engines more fuel efficient. And those developments require new materials, different types of technology, normally much tighter accuracies and tolerances. Every solution creates a host of other problems. Carbon fibre has no inherent strength in its structural strength. So then the aircraft need to have titanium superstructures to give them the strength that the aluminium planes had before. But these planes are now going to be 10, 15, 20% lighter and driven by, hopefully, Rolls-Royce engines that are going to be 10 to 15% more efficient, fuel efficient.
All sectors across manufacturing are performing well. There's the possibility of a downside here in terms of construction. Construction came out of the recession slower than the other parts of the sectors, and of course it's patchy. But other than that, this is across the board. Difficult to highlight any particular part of the sector, but if I was to, I'd probably quote mechanical, heavy investment, mechanical engineering, perhaps linked, of course, to those growing, emerging and export markets.
Not many UK companies make car parts anymore, but the recent switch to the low-carbon economy is giving them the chance to rise again. A report from the Automotive Council UK, which is chaired by the Business Secretary Vince Cable, found many areas of untapped demand where major international car manufacturers would like to buy UK car parts, and we have the capability to supply them.
25% of end-of-life vehicles now, which means more you scrap, are chucked into landfill. So the manufacturers are working on the utilisation of materials that can be recycled. All these challenges require different machining techniques, different manufacturing techniques and different advanced manufacturing.
Manufacturing is capital intensive and returns are spread over a number of years. By adopting new techniques, you put yourself in a stronger position to compete globally. Are the loans and investments going to be there, though, to support your plans?
I think a lot of businesses would like to see a lot of the red tape that they perceive makes their life difficult removed. And I think perhaps, taking a more macro perspective, we need to make the UK an attractive place for foreign companies to want to invest and for companies here to want to invest. The tax environment has got to be favourable, but at the same time, so has the environment for encouraging businesses to invest for the longer term. And at the moment, we're probably not as competitive in those spaces as we should be, and the budget started to make some changes to that this year.
I mean, I know talking to businesses that they do find that accessing finance is a problem. We should remember that 2/3 of the smallest businesses get the money they seek in terms of loans or in terms of overdrafts, and in fact nearly 85% of medium-sized firms also get the money that they're actually seeking. So it is a problem, but it's not quite one that affects every business. But what are we doing about it? Well, first of all, we've asked the banks, and they've now brought forward a lending code and an appeals process, so that if a business has a problem, they've got a means by challenging the bank if they think they've been dealt with unfairly. Secondly, we've also made sure that we are helping in terms of the enterprise finance guarantee, so government is underwriting loans made by the banks, and we think this will unlock about 2 billion in loans over the next 4 years. Then on the equity side, just as important if you're growing your business, we're investing 200 million in what we call the enterprise capital funds, and these are targeted at the high-growing, capital-intensive businesses, sometimes in industry, other times, for example, particularly in the low-carbon field. So it's that rounded approach, I think, as well as new initiatives on things like supply chain finance, that we think will actually free up the market and give businesses much more choice.
Well, I think if any business is seeking to grow, whether they're looking for markets in the UK or they're looking for markets outside the UK, they need to be sure that they're going to have access to funding. There's a big working capital cycle and there's a big asset investment cycle that's required. So it's no good having a banking relationship where actually the finance is there today but gone in 3 months' time. So we focus very much on making sure that we really understand the companies we work with by spending a lot of time with them, getting to understand their business, getting to understand what could go right, what could go well, what could not go well, and how they'll deal with it. So we really become much more of a partner than a provider of a product. In fact, we're very keen not to be seen as a provider of products. We're very keen to be seen as a partner and to work with them as their other partners do. So if we have an understanding of their business, then we can provide financial solutions to them in terms of funding packages that will give them the confidence to grow and develop their business, to take on more staff, to invest in more equipment, to find new markets. Many of the customers who came to see us were customers who couldn't get what they wanted from their existing bank. And that's kind of obvious when you sort of set up a bank in the UK. However much money you spend on marketing, the guys who are going to come and see you to start with are the people who perhaps can't get what they want from their existing provider. So in helping a lot of those customers, which we've been able to do, you would assume that we have a higher risk profile than our competitors, and we don't. That our risk profile in terms of our cost of risk as we measure it, for the lending that we've done over the last 3 years, is running at about 20% of the cost of risk as measured by the industry in the period up to 2008. So whilst we've taken on customers who can't get what they want from other banks, we're not doing it at the expense of risk, which I think is probably, for me, the most telling observation about how the industry has perhaps supported the broader UK economy over the course of the last 3 years.
At the start of the year, the gap in the goods that Britain trades internationally narrowed more sharply than at any time in the last 30 years, according to the Office for National Statistics. The improvement was led by manufacturers doing well in markets that are leading the recovery, such as the US. If the turnaround in Britain's manufacturing fortunes is going to become a lasting revival, then what improvements in the operating environment would make the most difference? Where might enterprises turn for help in getting themselves up to speed on technology? How could more teenagers be encouraged to take up engineering? Could tax take better account of the long-term plans that manufacturing requires? What improvements in the infrastructure might make the most difference?
I would like to encourage a scheme not dissimilar to the Carbon Trust scheme that was very successful in helping people to use energy in a much more environmentally efficient way. I'd like to see a similar scheme where the government were incentivising manufacturers to invest in modern, up-to-date technology to help them compete in a global world.
Well, certainly for the SMEs, small and medium enterprises in this country, we'd like to see some ministry capable of interfacing to our industry and these enterprises, maybe as an independent authority that would give advice, impartial advice on where this technology could be used. On top of that, I think would also be a very good action is if we could get the government and the local businesses and the schools to have a little bit more to do with each other, so that when it comes to engineering or production or manufacturing, then we have a greater understanding from the school end to the manufacturing end to the government end, so we could join the three up. It would make it a lot more interesting for children to actually come into this kind of industry as opposed to go to university and do non-manufacturing or non-production or non-industrial courses.
Well, I'd like to see some policy decisions at the highest level which support a long-term base in manufacturing to give everyone the confidence that manufacturing is here to stay in the UK. I'd like to see more support to entice and motivate teenagers through into science and technology and into manufacturing. It would also be good to see a strong tax environment in the UK which supports investment in manufacturing on the long term. And if anything, in the next 2 years, if we could freeze any policy that's not going to aid the productive improvement of our manufacturing base, would be a big plus.
For a lot of our customers, they have to make big investments in their businesses, and it's about the certainty to do that. So I think there are a number of significant major infrastructure projects that the government's working on, things like high-speed rail links, things like nuclear power. And I think we just need some certainty in all of those types of things so that businesses can choose whether they be just UK manufacturers choosing to invest or whether they be global manufacturers choosing to invest in the UK. So I think that certainty would allow people to make those investments with confidence. I think the other thing that a lot of our customers would like to see is a government procurement process that was, if not favourable towards UK customers, certainly neutral towards UK companies. I think the other piece that we'd like to see, and most of our customers would like to see, is incentives to invest in equipment, in training, in technology. So again, I think one of the things that the UK government could do is look at incentivising people to make investments in those, so that maybe it's through tax breaks or tax breaks for those investments, so we could take some of those world-class manufacturers we've got and make them as efficient as some of the other places in Europe and around the world. I think the UK ranks about 7th in terms of factory automation in Europe, so I think it's absolutely critical that we get our UK manufacturers investing in equipment to bring them up to the same levels of efficiency that other people are. And the best way the government could do to encourage that is possibly tax incentives for training and for equipment and for technology.
Over the last couple of decades, manufacturing has not had a particularly attractive or good image, and I think it would be wrong of us not to recognise that. But I believe that is changing, and I believe it's changing quite strongly. As a result, in part from that recession, manufacturing is a great wealth generator. About 53% of our exports come from manufacturing, about 70% of our research and development in business comes from manufacturing, and of course it's a double positive whammy when we export what we've got here. And I think there is a clear link, whether or not we wish to face up to it or not. There is a clear link that where research and development is undertaken, in the main, that tends to be where the manufacturing or production takes place.
It is a global market that we work in. Aircraft, medical, automotive, they are all built everywhere around the world. And we compete closely with markets as far away as Brazil and China. So for us to maintain any sort of competitive edge, we have to be able to be innovative, and we have to find the best ways in which we can manufacture those components.
The upturn in British manufacturing is certainly being helped by a weak pound. It's unlikely that that is the whole story. After 20 years out of the limelight and after the worst downturn in decades, British manufacturers are absorbing the lessons of how to apply new technologies and how to compete globally. It looks like a good basis on which to continue the revival in their fortunes. Well, that's all we've got time for now, but if you'd like to find out more about any of the organisations that we featured, then visit thebusinesschannel.tv or download via iTunes by searching for The Business Channel TV. Bye-bye for now.